The glass shattered against the wall before Min-jae even felt the pain. Red wine splashed like blood across the white wallpaper as his body slammed backward, his head hitting the edge of the marble counter. The room spun. His wife's laughter cut through the ringing in his ears, sharp and cruel, nothing like the sweet voice she used in public. "Did you really think I loved you?" Soo-yeon said, tilting her head as she watched him struggle to breathe. Her long hair cascaded over her shoulders, the same hair that had once made every boy in high school turn their heads. "You were convenient, that's all." Min-jae's fingers clawed at the floor. "So-yeon," his throat burned. Something was wrong, very wrong. The wine, the metallic taste. His vision blurred as another figure stepped out from the shadows behind her. "Hyung," the man said softly. "You always were too trusting." Min-jae's eyes widened. Jun-ho? His best friend. The man he had defended, promoted, and trusted with his life. Jun-ho crouched beside him, his face full of mock sympathy. "You should have stayed poor. Then maybe you wouldn't have been worth killing." The world tilted. Min-jae tried to speak, but his tongue felt heavy, useless. Soo-yeon knelt too, her manicured fingers gripping his chin. "Don't worry," she whispered. "You'll die knowing the truth. We've been together for years, even on our wedding night." She smiled. "You were never the one." Pain exploded in his chest. His heartbeat slowed, each thud weaker than the last. The ceiling lights blurred into darkness as their laughter echoed, fading into nothing. Then silence. Min-jae expected oblivion. Instead, he felt weightless, warm. A voice echoed, neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. "Injustice has been committed." Light surrounded him. Scenes of his life flashed before his eyes. Long nights working, missed meals, trust freely given, love wasted on someone who despised him. "You lived sincerely," the voice continued. "You died betrayed." Min-jae clenched his fists. "If I could go back," his voice broke. "I wouldn't love her. I wouldn't trust them. I'd destroy them." The light pulsed. "Then go back." He gasped. Min-jae bolted upright in bed, sweat soaking his shirt, his heart hammering violently. He looked around, breath ragged, his bedroom, intact, familiar. The digital clock on the bedside table glowed red. May 3rd. His blood ran cold. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands. The date confirmed it. 1 month before his death. A bitter laugh tore from his throat. So it wasn't a dream. The door opened softly. "Jagiya?" Soo-yeon's voice drifted in, sweet as honey. She stepped inside wearing silk pajamas, concern painted perfectly across her face. "You were screaming." Min-jae stared at her. The same face, the same eyes that had watched him die. Rage surged so violently, he had to dig his nails into his palm to keep from lunging at her. "I'm fine," he said slowly. She smiled and sat beside him, placing a hand on his chest. He flinched internally but didn't move. "Work stress again?" she asked. "You push yourself too hard." He looked at her hand. He remembered this moment. In his past life, he had kissed her fingers and apologized. This time he smiled. "You're right. I should relax more." Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Min-jae lay back down after she left, staring at the ceiling until dawn. His mind raced, piecing everything together. The late nights, the secret phone calls, Jun-ho's sudden promotions, the strange expenses from their joint account. It all made sense now. "I won't confront you," he whispered into the quiet room. "I won't warn you." He turned his head toward the window as sunlight crept in. "I'll let you destroy yourselves." At work, Min-jae became a different man. Calm, observant. He watched Soo-yeon text under the table during dinner. He watched Jun-ho avoid his gaze in meetings. He remembered every detail from his past life, every mistake, every betrayal. One evening, as he left the office early, someone called his name. Min-jae. He froze, that voice. He turned to see Hae-rin standing near the lobby entrance, clutching a folder to her chest. Plain clothes, nervous smile. The woman he barely noticed in his past life. "Hae-rin," he said. She laughed awkwardly. "It's been a while. I heard you were promoted. Congratulations." In his past life, this was where he had brushed her off, too busy, too distracted by Soo-yeon's demands. This time, he saw it. The way her eyes softened when she looked at him. The way her fingers trembled slightly. "Thank you," he said gently. "Do you want to grab coffee?" Her eyes widened. Really?" "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." As they sat across from each other later, Min-jae felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Hae-rin listened when he spoke. She laughed without cruelty. When she talked about her dreams, there was no greed in her eyes. "You've changed," she said quietly. "You seem lighter." He looked at her. "Maybe I finally opened my eyes." At home that night, Soo-yeon scrolled through her phone, irritation written all over her face. "You're late," she snapped. "I had coffee with a colleague," Min-jae replied evenly. Her gaze sharpened. "A woman?" "Yes." Silence fell. Then she laughed. "You're funny." Min-jae smiled back. He knew that laugh now. He knew what came after. And this time he was ready. The next morning, Min-jae woke before the alarm, heart pounding. He dressed slowly, methodically, checking every pocket, every detail. Today, he would plant the first subtle seed of doubt. Every smile, every word, every gesture counted. One misstep, and the plan could fail. Soo-yeon was already in the kitchen when he arrived. She hummed softly, the scent of coffee drifting through the air. "Good morning," she said sweetly, a deliberate tilt to her head, as if nothing had changed. "Morning," he replied, letting just enough warmth seep into his voice to keep her unsuspecting. "You're quiet today," she observed. "Something on your mind?" "Just thinking about work." His eyes met hers. He held her gaze, steady. "I've been thinking a lot about what matters most." Soo-yeon's smile faltered for a split second, a micro-expression he had learned to notice in his previous life. Then she covered it with a laugh. Always so mysterious. He chuckled lightly. "I'm learning from the best." That morning at the office, Min-jae watched Junho carefully. His friend-turned-enemy sat with his usual arrogance, tapping at the keyboard with a self-satisfied smirk. Min-jae's hand rested casually on his desk, pretending to review documents, while his mind replayed the moment he died. Junho leaned back and whispered something to a colleague. Min-jae caught every word. The office was a stage, and he was learning the choreography this time. He wouldn't be blindsided. During lunch, Min-jae met Hae-rin again, choosing a quiet cafe off the main street. She smiled nervously, her fingers twisting the strap of her bag. "I didn't think you'd actually want to meet," she admitted, staring down at her coffee. "I'm learning to value sincerity," Min-jae replied, leaning slightly forward. "It's rare, and I don't want to waste it." Her eyes widened, and her lips parted in surprise. You mean that?" "I do." His gaze softened, but there was steel underneath it. "I've made mistakes, ignored people who cared. This time I won't." Her hand brushed his across the table. Something warm and tender passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement of what had always been there. In the past, he would have been distracted, thinking of Soo-yeon's beauty, her charm, her manipulations. Now, he saw clearly. Hae-rin's love was unwavering, and it was real. After lunch, he returned home, mentally preparing for Soo-yeon's expected moods. She was in the living room, scrolling through her phone. "You seem happier lately," she said casually. "Is someone making you smile?" "I've been smiling for myself," he said, his tone light, almost airy. He caught the flicker of suspicion in her eyes and smiled inwardly. Patience. Every small reaction counted. She said, her voice lacking conviction. Well, as long as you're happy. Min-jae walked past her, careful to brush against her shoulder. A deliberate touch, faint, enough to remind her of his presence but not alarming. She stiffened slightly, and he noticed. The first crack. That evening he stayed late at the office, sending emails and messages he had drafted in his previous life. He redirected certain funds, monitored Jun-ho's transactions, and quietly documented everything that could later serve as evidence. Every detail mattered. Every mistake they made would be used against them. As he drove home, his phone buzzed. Hae-rin. "Hey," she said softly. "I finished the project we discussed. Can I show you tomorrow?" "I'll make time," he replied. "I want to see it." Her laughter was quiet but genuine. "You really do care, don't you?" "I do," he said without hesitation. "And I always will." After hanging up, he leaned back in the seat, letting a rare smile escape. Revenge wouldn't consume him this time. He would be careful, precise, and ultimately, he would win. The following day, Soo-yeon tried a subtle test. She mentioned a past dinner where he had been unfaithful, fabricating details to see if he reacted. Min-jae merely raised an eyebrow, smiled, and nodded. "I don't remember that at all. Are you sure it happened?" Her jaw tightened, but she didn't push. He had outmaneuvered her before she even knew the game had begun. Meanwhile, Hae-rin's presence became a grounding force. At night, they would talk for hours, sometimes over text, sometimes on video calls, sharing fears, dreams, and quiet moments he had missed in his previous life. Every conversation deepened their connection, and Min-jae realized he had been blind before. Soo-yeon's beauty had been hollow. Hae-rin's affection was real. Hae-rin to her apartment, he stopped under the soft glow of the streetlights. "Hae-rin," he said, taking her hand gently. "I need to tell you something." She looked up at him, curious. "What is it?" "I remember everything," he admitted. "Everything that will happen to me in the next month. I've been betrayed. I've been hurt in ways you can't imagine. But this time I'm changing the outcome." Her eyes widened. You're saying you know the future?" He nodded. "And I want you by my side. You were always there, always loyal. This time I won't make the same mistakes. I choose you." Tears glistened in her eyes. "I have always loved you, Min-jae. Always." He pulled her close, holding her as if anchoring himself to reality, to the one person he could trust completely. Their embrace was long, and for the first time, Min-jae felt a calm determination settle over him. He had a reason to fight, not just for revenge, but for love. Back at home, Soo-yeon noticed a subtle change. Min-jae no longer flinched at her provocations. He no longer sought her approval or attention. He moved through the house with calm authority, responding with measured words, always polite, always careful. Her suspicion grew. One night, she approached him as he read a book in the living room. "Min-jae, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "You've been different lately, distracted, cold." He looked up at her, expression neutral. "I've been thinking about us," he said softly. "About what matters. About trust." Soo-yeon's eyes narrowed. "Trust? After all these years, you suddenly care about trust?" "I care about what's real," he replied. "And I've realized some things aren't worth keeping." Her brow furrowed. "Are you threatening me?" Min-jae's lips curved into a faint smile. "Not threatening, just preparing. I want you to live without illusions, Soo-yeon, because this time I'm not blind." She stepped back, her confidence faltering. He had learned to read her perfectly. Her small, involuntary reactions betrayed anxiety, even fear. The first cracks in her perfect facade. The next day, Min-jae carefully left an email on Jun-ho's desk, disguised as a casual reminder about a shared project. Hidden in it were subtle clues, evidence he had collected, and slight suggestions that someone was watching. Jun-ho frowned at the email, confused, a twinge of unease creeping in. By evening, Min-jae met Hae-rin again at the cafe. "They're starting to slip," he said, sipping his coffee. "It's amazing what a little awareness does." Hae-rin laughed softly, warmth in her eyes. "You make it sound so easy." He shook his head. "It's not easy. It's exhausting. But knowing I have you, that makes it worth it." She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "I'll be with you, every step of the way." For the first time since his death, Min-jae felt hope instead of despair. He had 1 month. 1 month to correct the past, expose the betrayal, and protect the love he had always ignored. As he returned home that night, Soo-yeon was waiting. Her perfume wafted through the hallway. "Min-jae," she said, feigning sweetness. "Are you avoiding me?" He shook his head, smiling faintly. "Not at all, just busy. I've got plans." Her eyes narrowed. "Plans?" "Yes," he said calmly. "Plans to live differently, to be careful, to be ready." She tilted her head, suspicion growing, but she said nothing, letting him pass. Min-jae stood in his bedroom, staring at the ceiling. 1 month. That was all he had. A small smile touched his lips. He was ready. The days passed like a countdown, ticking louder in Min-jae's mind. Each morning he woke before the sun, reviewing notes he had memorized from his past life, checking movements, schedules, and subtle habits. Every smile from Soo-yeon, every careless word from Jun-ho, every glance in a mirror, he cataloged it all. This time, he would not be blind. At the office, Min-jae's presence had shifted. Where once he had rushed, desperate to please, now he moved with deliberate calm. Meetings that had been battlegrounds of manipulation became arenas where he quietly observed. Colleagues noticed it. Soo-yeon noticed it. Jun-ho noticed it. But none could pinpoint the change, only feel the growing unease. During lunch, Hae-rin met him again. She carried a folder of designs she had been working on for months. "I finished the revisions," she said nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I hope you like them." Min-jae leaned over the table, scanning the papers carefully. "These are perfect," he said sincerely, but his mind was already shifting. "I also want your opinion on something personal." Her eyes widened. "Personal? I'm trying to prepare for what's coming," he said. "There are people who think they control everything, who lie without conscience. I've learned the hard way that some people won't hesitate to destroy anyone in their way. You're the only one I trust completely." Hae-rin's hand brushed his again. "I don't need to hear more. I'll help you however I can." The words were simple, but Min-jae felt a warmth that grounded him. For the first time, his mind wasn't racing with fear or anger alone. It was tempered with something stronger, love that was real, unwavering, and worth fighting for. Back at home, Soo-yeon was plotting. She had noticed the change in him. He no longer hung on her words, he no longer flinched at her cold glares, and he no longer sought her attention. That small smile when he walked past her? It unsettled her more than anything else. She spent hours staring at her reflection, whispering to herself, "What are you planning, Min-jae?" Meanwhile, Min-jae began planting subtle traps. An innocuous question about a business deal would be phrased just so, drawing attention to discrepancies in Jun-ho's finances. He'd leave receipts strategically placed, casually mention minor incidents to colleagues, and allow Soo-yeon to overhear conversations that seemed mundane. Jun-ho noticed. He frowned at an email Min-jae had accidentally sent, A simple message about a project with attachments of small accounting inconsistencies. It wasn't incriminating yet, but it gnawed at him. The unease began to fester. One evening, Min-jae invited Hae-rin to a quiet park. The lights glimmered along the path, and a soft wind carried the scent of blooming flowers. He reached for her hand without hesitation. "Hae-rin," he said softly, "there's something I need to admit." Her eyes, wide and trusting, met his. "What is it?" "I was blinded before. I didn't see what really mattered. I made choices for the wrong reasons, valued the wrong people. This time I'm changing that." Her lips quivered. "I have always hoped you'd see me like this." He pulled her closer. "Then I choose you. I choose us. I won't let anyone hurt us. Not this time, not ever." The kiss was gentle but electrifying. It was a promise, a declaration. In that moment, Min-jae felt strength he hadn't known he possessed. The world might have been cruel, but here, with her, he found clarity. The next day, Min-jae noticed the first signs of tension between Soo-yeon and Jun-ho. Small arguments over minor things, whispered words meant to be secret but carried to Min-jae's ears, eyes darting nervously whenever he entered a room. The foundation of their partnership was cracking, just as he had planned. He used this to his advantage. At dinner, he mentioned casually, "Funny, I saw some unusual charges on our shared account yesterday. I'm sure it's nothing, but I'll check with Jun-ho later." Soo-yeon froze mid-bite. Her mind raced. Jun-ho shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Min-jae smiled faintly. No one spoke. The silence carried weight. He had planted the seed. Later that night, Min-jae sat at his desk, reviewing photos, messages, and documents he had collected. Every detail was precise. Every pattern was accounted for. In his past life, he had missed tiny details that had led to his death. This time, he would not. His phone buzzed. "Hae-rin." "Min-jae," she said softly, voice trembling. "I had a feeling something's wrong. For you. Are you okay?" "I am," he reassured her. "I've never been more alive. This time, I'm ready." Her voice softened. "Then we'll face it together." "Yes," he said, a smile in his tone. "Together." The following week, Min-jae orchestrated a small public exposure of Jun-ho's financial missteps. Nothing drastic, just enough to create doubt among colleagues. Whispers spread, and Jun-ho's confidence began to crack. Min-jae noticed every flinch, every hesitation, and filed it carefully in his mind. Soo-yeon, growing increasingly frustrated by Min-jae's calm composure, tried to provoke him. She mentioned past nights, past conversations, even fabricated flirtations. Min-jae responded only with measured words, polite smiles, and slight nods. Each response was a hammer striking the foundation of her control. One evening, Min-jae and Hae-rin shared dinner at a quiet restaurant. She reached for his hand across the table. "You're so different from before. So calm, so unshakable." He squeezed her hand gently. "It's not just calm. It's awareness. I see everything now, the lies, the betrayals, the dangers. I won't make the same mistakes." She smiled, eyes glistening. "Then I'm glad I can be with you now. I've waited so long." "And I finally opened my eyes," he said softly, leaning closer. "You're the one who matters." That night, as he returned home, he noticed Soo-yeon lurking near the staircase, pretending to tidy a bookshelf. Her perfume drifted through the air. "You're late," she said, voice low, calculating. "I was at work," he said evenly. "You're hiding something," she said. "I can feel it." He tilted his head, smiling faintly. "Perhaps, but it's nothing you need to worry about. I'm just being careful." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Careful?" "Yes. Careful to survive, careful to notice, careful to see the truth." Hae-rin joined him at the office under the guise of discussing designs. "I noticed tension," she whispered, glancing around. "Be careful." "I am," he replied, "and it's working. Every misstep they make is another piece of the puzzle." Their hands brushed as she passed him documents. The touch was fleeting but grounding. In his past life, he had never noticed such moments, never cherished them. Now, each connection with Hae-rin strengthened his resolve, reminded him of what was worth fighting for. As the weekend approached, Min-jae began drafting letters, compiling evidence, and setting the stage for the inevitable confrontation. Soo-yeon and Jun-ho were moving faster than he anticipated, driven by their own paranoia and greed. That haste worked in his favor. Late Sunday night, Min-jae stood at the balcony looking out at the city lights. Hae-rin joined him silently. "You're amazing," she said softly. "You've turned everything around in just a few days." He turned to her, hand brushing hers lightly. "Not me alone. I have you. This time I won't fail. And they won't win." Her smile was gentle, filled with trust. "Then we'll make sure of it." For the first time since his death, Min-jae felt fully alive. The next steps would be dangerous, the stakes higher than ever, but with careful strategy, unwavering patience, and the love he had finally acknowledged, he knew he could rewrite his fate. The next morning, Min-jae began the first phase of his plan for financial exposure. Subtle transactions, carefully worded emails, and small mistakes made by Jun-ho under stress were cataloged. Min-jae's awareness of every nuance gave him control. He knew when Jun-ho would sweat, when Soo-yeon would panic, and when Hae-rin's presence could anchor him emotionally. By midweek, cracks in their confidence were evident. Soo-yeon's calm facade occasionally faltered. She whispered to Jun-ho more urgently, gestured nervously, and left small signs of agitation. Min-jae noted everyone. The week began with an electric tension in the air. Min-jae moved through it like a predator, calm and deliberate, while his enemies fumbled under their own paranoia. At work, Jun-ho avoided his gaze, clicking keys nervously. Soo-yeon, meanwhile, lingered near him in meetings, her eyes darting constantly, suspicion simmering behind her practiced smile. Min-jae's plan was subtle but relentless. He began by planting small rumors that questioned Jun-ho's integrity, letting whispers reach colleagues' ears, naturally. Every question, every glance was calculated to make them second-guess themselves, while he remained the unshakable center of calm. During a late-night work session, Hae-rin arrived unexpectedly, carrying her laptop. "I wanted to check on you," she said softly, setting it on his desk. "I know things are tense." Min-jae smiled, feeling a rare warmth. "You always know when I need you." She sat across from him, eyes intent. "How are you holding up?" "Better than ever," he said. "I've never been more focused. This time I see everything. Every detail matters." Her lips curved in a gentle smile. "And what about your heart?" He looked at her hand resting lightly on the desk. "My heart is yours." The words lingered between them, unspoken promises in the soft glow of the office lights. For the first time, Min-jae felt strength not just from revenge, but from love. Hae-rin's steady presence anchored him, reminding him what he truly fought for. The following morning, Soo-yeon tested him again. Over breakfast, she mentioned an old acquaintance, someone he had allegedly flirted with in the past life. "I heard you were seen with her last week," she said, voice laced with faux casualness. Min-jae raised an eyebrow, sipping his coffee. "Really? That's surprising. I don't remember her at all." Her eyes flickered, doubt crossing her face before she masked it with a tight-lipped smile. He had noted that micro-expression. Another crack. At the office, Min-jae executed the next phase of his plan. He subtly manipulated schedules and emails, creating minor inconsistencies in Jun-ho's reports. Nothing overt, nothing immediately damning, but enough to make him question his own competence. He observed silently as Jun-ho's confident facade began to slip. The man who had once sneered at him now hesitated at every decision, unsure if someone was watching. By midweek, Min-jae began leaving subtle hints that Soo-yeon's communications were being monitored. A casually mentioned comment about a lost email here, a whispered suggestion about a misfiled message there. Each small seed of doubt caused tension between her and Jun-ho, who began blaming her for imagined mistakes. At night, Min-jae and Hae-rin met at a quiet cafe, sharing dinner and stolen moments of normalcy. "You're becoming unstoppable," she said softly, watching him with awe. He laughed quietly. "Not unstoppable. Careful, patient, observant. That's what's unstoppable. And this time, I won't let them hurt me, or us." Her hand brushed his across the table. "Then we'll do it together." "I wouldn't have it any other way," he said. Their fingers intertwined, a simple gesture that anchored him in a world that had once been cruel and unpredictable. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon's frustration grew. She noticed Min-jae's increasing detachment, the way he no longer sought her attention or approval. She attempted to provoke him with subtle digs, comments about past mistakes, and even fabricated flirtations. Each attempt failed. He responded with calm detachment, polite smiles, and neutral words. Every failed attempt deepened her unease. By Thursday, the tension between Soo-yeon and Jun-ho had escalated into open arguments behind closed doors. Min-jae noticed this during a casual stroll past the office windows. Jun-ho's hand clenched into a fist, Soo-yeon's face flushed with anger, and yet they both froze when they saw him approach. Their secrecy was crumbling under pressure. Min-jae's smile was faint but satisfied. The first layer of his plan, the destabilization of their partnership, was working. He had observed, manipulated, and waited. Now the cracks were beginning to widen. That evening he met Hae-rin at a park near the river. The city lights reflected off the water, and the soft murmur of the river was a rare calm in the storm of his life. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You're so composed, so focused, and so kind. Even now, planning revenge, you haven't lost yourself." "I have to stay myself," he said, taking her hand. "I've seen the darkness of betrayal. I've felt the pain of dying without warning. I can't let that take over me. I need to be strong, for justice and for love." Her eyes glistened. "Then let me help you. Let me be your strength too." He drew her into a gentle embrace. "You already are." The next day, Min-jae began planting more concrete evidence of Jun-ho's corruption. Minor invoices, small transfers, subtle irregularities, all meticulously documented and hidden where only he could access them. Each move was deliberate, each moment carefully timed. Soo-yeon tried again that evening. "You've been acting strangely," she said, voice low, almost threatening. "Do you have someone else?" Min-jae's smile was patient, calm, almost mocking in its restraint. "I don't think anyone but myself deserves my attention these days," he said smoothly. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be clever with me." "I'm not being clever," he replied. "I'm being careful." She stepped closer, her perfume enveloping him. "Careful or scared?" He shook his head slightly, voice soft but firm. "Neither. I've learned from the past. This time I see everything." That small confession, calm and measured, sent a ripple of doubt through her mind. She flinched, almost imperceptibly, and Min-jae noted it carefully. By Friday, Min-jae had arranged a subtle test. He left a strategically worded email on Jun-ho's desk, a seemingly casual request with attachments highlighting minor financial discrepancies. Jun-ho's panic was immediate, though hidden behind a mask of professionalism. Every glance he cast at Min-jae was now filled with unease, suspicion, and fear. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon noticed subtle changes in Jun-ho, too. He was restless, quick to anger, and easily flustered. She tried to calm him, whispering suggestions, questioning decisions. But he snapped at her once, and she felt the first real sting of the control slipping away. Min-jae watched this from afar, savoring the growing tension. He didn't need to act openly. The unraveling had begun, and the more they tried to stabilize themselves, the deeper they fell into the traps he had set. Later that night, Hae-rin came to his apartment, carrying a small bundle of homemade food. "I thought you could use a proper meal," she said softly, smiling despite the weight in her eyes. He took it gently. "You always know what I need." They ate together in silence for a few moments, enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. Then she spoke, voice soft. "Do you think they'll realize what's coming?" "They'll realize," he said calmly, "but it will be too late. By then, everything they relied on will have crumbled, and the truth will be impossible to hide." Her hand found his again, squeezing gently. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever happens, I'm with you." He looked at her, eyes filled with a mixture of resolve and warmth. "You've been my strength since the beginning. This time, nothing can break us." The weekend brought the first major slip. Jun-ho, trying to cover his growing mistakes, confronted Min-jae in a secluded hallway. "What are you doing?" he hissed, voice tight. "Why are you interfering?" Min-jae's smile was calm, serene. "Interfering? I'm simply not blind this time, and I see everything." Jun-ho's eyes narrowed, but the confidence that had once fueled his arrogance faltered. "You don't know what you're getting into," he spat. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm getting into," Min-jae said, leaning slightly closer, "and I've already planned for it." Jun-ho stumbled back, panic creeping into his movements. Min-jae's calm, measured demeanor was a weapon more powerful than anger, more precise than confrontation. It unnerved him completely. Later that evening, Soo-yeon approached Min-jae alone in the living room, trying one last time to probe his mind. "Min-jae," she said softly, almost pleading, "please, just tell me what's going on." He looked at her evenly. "I'm seeing clearly now. I understand what's real and what's a lie. I won't be deceived again." Her lips trembled. You've changed." He nodded faintly. "I have. And so have you. Shown me who you truly are." She said nothing, the tension between them thickening. As he stood on the balcony later, Hae-rin beside him, the city lights reflected in his eyes like a promise. The final stages were near. Each trap was set. Each crack in their facade had widened. And with Hae-rin's love anchoring him, Min-jae felt a power he had never known. An unshakable calm ready to transform into decisive action. Monday arrived like a storm. Min-jae moved through the office with deliberate calm, yet every step carried the weight of impending justice. He had watched Soo-yeon and Jun-ho unravel for days, each interaction leaving them more paranoid, more desperate. Today, he would escalate. He started with Jun-ho. A casual meeting in the boardroom, a few pointed questions about recent financial reports. Jun-ho shifted in his seat, trying to maintain control. I checked the accounts," he stammered. "Everything seems fine." Min-jae leaned back, fingers steepled. "Interesting, because I noticed a few discrepancies. Nothing major, of course, but enough to warrant attention." His voice was calm, neutral, yet every word struck like a blade. Jun-ho's face paled. He glanced at Soo-yeon, who sat nearby, trying to maintain composure. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Min-jae watched, noting every twitch, every flicker of anxiety. The cracks were spreading. At lunch, Hae-rin met him again. They found a quiet corner of the park, the early spring air soft against their skin. She reached for his hand. "They're slipping," she said, voice filled with awe. You're incredible. Min-jae shook his head. Not incredible. Careful, observant, patient. That's what wins. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And having you by my side. She smiled, warmth in her eyes. Then I'm staying right here. Always. That afternoon, Min-jae orchestrated the first public evidence drop. A small, anonymous tip about Junho's irregular transactions reached the compliance department. The email was vague, careful, but enough to ignite suspicion. Junho's face grew red as whispers spread through the office. Soo-yeon's patience snapped. That evening, she cornered Min-jae in their shared apartment. "Tell me what you've done," she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "I know you're hiding something." Min-jae's eyes met hers evenly. "I'm not hiding. I'm seeing clearly, and I know what you've done, what you've tried to hide." Her hands shook, frustration and fear warring in her expression. You can't prove anything." He smiled faintly. "I don't need to prove it yet. I just need to wait." Soo-yeon's gaze faltered. Min-jae had never felt fear from her before, but now it was clear. The balance of power had shifted. Meanwhile, Hae-rin's presence grounded him. Late that night she came over, bringing homemade food and a quiet smile. "I don't know how you do it," she said softly. "They're powerful, dangerous, and yet you seem untouchable." Min-jae shook his head, pulling her close. "I am untouchable because I know the truth, and because I have you." Her lips brushed his cheek. "Then nothing can stop us." The next day, Min-jae executed the next phase of his plan. He subtly leaked evidence to colleagues, hints at Junho's misdeeds that could be interpreted in multiple ways. The whispers grew louder, doubts spreading like wildfire. Junho's arrogance crumbled. He snapped at a junior employee for no reason, revealing his stress. Soo-yeon tried to calm him, but her words fell flat. By midweek, the tension reached a fever pitch. Soo-yeon attempted to manipulate Min-jae with fabricated memories of intimacy, hoping to reignite his affection or at least destabilize him. He responded with calm detachment. Every smile, every polite nod, every measured word was a mirror reflecting her own lies back at her. At night, Min-jae met Hae-rin on the balcony. The city lights shimmered like stars below. "It's almost time," he said softly. "They're slipping faster than I anticipated." She nodded, her hand in his. "And when it happens, we'll be ready." "Yes," he whispered. "Together." Thursday evening brought a tense confrontation. Min-jae caught Junho attempting to delete financial records. "What are you doing?" he asked calmly. Junho froze, panic spreading across his face. "Nothing, just checking files." Min-jae stepped closer, voice low but firm. "I see everything, Junho. Every lie, every secret, every misstep." Soo-yeon appeared behind him, anger and fear flashing across her features. "Stop intimidating him." "I'm not intimidating anyone," Min-jae replied evenly. "I'm simply observing." Junho stumbled backward, realizing that Min-jae had anticipated this exact moment. He was trapped by his own greed and paranoia. Soo-yeon's control slipped further as she realized her plans were failing. That night, Hae-rin joined him for a late dinner in a quiet bistro. "You've cornered them perfectly," she whispered. "I can see it in their eyes." He reached across the table, holding her hand gently. "They don't know what's coming. And I don't intend to reveal it until the final moment. Patience has been my greatest weapon." The following day, Min-jae planted the final pieces. Evidence of Junho's corruption, combined with subtle traces of Soo-yeon's manipulation, was compiled into files that could not be ignored. He left hints in emails, strategically misplaced documents, and minor conversations overheard in public spaces, all designed to create a cascading effect when revealed. Soo-yeon, growing desperate, attempted one last manipulation. She cornered him in the bedroom, voice soft but venomous. Min-jae, you don't understand. I can make it all go away. Just trust me. Min-jae looked at her evenly, expression calm, almost serene. Trust you? After everything? No. I've learned from the past, and this time I see clearly. I won't be deceived again. Her lips quivered, fear breaking through the facade of confidence. For the first time, she realized she was no longer in control. The next morning, Min-jae executed the culmination of his plan. Jun-ho was subtly exposed in front of the board, discrepancies highlighted, mistakes amplified through carefully planted whispers. The man who had once dominated the office with arrogance now stumbled, humiliated, powerless. Soo-yeon's attempts to manipulate perception failed. Colleagues whispered, connections frayed, and the network of lies she had built collapsed. Every glance she cast at Min-jae now carried fear. Min-jae remained calm, watching from the sidelines. He didn't need to act overtly. Their own greed and paranoia had set the stage perfectly. That evening, Hae-rin arrived, radiant and warm. "It's almost over," she said softly. He held her close. "Yes, and then we can finally be free. Free of lies, free of betrayal. Together." The night was quiet, the city lights shimmering, reflecting in his eyes like the promise of a new life. He had 1 month, and he had used every moment wisely. The final act was ready to unfold, and nothing could stop him now. The morning was eerily quiet. Min-jae walked into the office with a calm that belied the storm about to break. Jun-ho and Soo-yeon, already frayed from days of paranoia, were tense, watching him with suspicion in every movement. Min-jae's plan had reached its final stage. He had compiled every piece of evidence: financial discrepancies, emails, messages, and recorded admissions. He had left no room for escape. Today, the truth would surface, and their carefully constructed lies would collapse. He entered the boardroom where Jun-ho had gathered a few remaining allies, smug in their ignorance. Min-jae opened a folder, sliding documents across the table. "Take a look," he said, voice calm, almost detached. "I thought you might want to see the truth before it's too late." Jun-ho's eyes widened, panic flashing. "What is this?" "These are your mistakes," Min-jae said evenly. "Every falsified report, every misappropriated fund, every attempt to manipulate others for personal gain. All documented." Soo-yeon stepped forward, lips trembling. This isn't proof." "It is," Min-jae replied, placing another folder in front of her. "I made sure it's impossible to deny, and I've shared copies with everyone who matters. The board, the auditors, even your peers." Jun-ho tried to speak, but his voice cracked. You can't do this." "I already have," Min-jae said softly. "And it's nothing personal. It's justice." Soo-yeon's face went pale. She opened the folder, scanning the documents. Her perfect world had crumbled. Every subtle manipulation, every lie she had used to control him was exposed. She turned to him, eyes wide with desperation. "Min-jae, please, we can fix this." He shook his head slowly. "No, it's too late. You had your chance. You chose betrayal, and now you face the consequences." Jun-ho's hands shook as he realized the extent of his downfall. Min-jae had anticipated every move, every attempt to cover tracks. Arrogance that had once fueled him now became his cage. Later that day, Min-jae walked home with Hae-rin. The city hummed softly around them, lights reflecting in puddles of rain from a brief shower. She squeezed his hand. "You did it," she whispered. "They're finished." He smiled, warmth in his eyes. "Not just finished, exposed, and we're free." At home, Soo-yeon and Jun-ho packed in silence. Their power, their influence, even their pride had been stripped away. Min-jae watched, detached but satisfied. The man he had been, the one who had died helplessly, would have been proud of the precision. That night, Min-jae and Hae-rin sat on the balcony, The city sprawled beneath them. He held her hand, fingers entwined. "It's finally over," he said softly. "No lies, no betrayal, no shadows from the past." Hae-rin leaned against him. "It's beautiful," she said. "You fought so carefully, so wisely. And now we can live freely, together." He kissed her forehead gently. "Together. And I won't waste a moment this time. We have a life to live, and I've learned what truly matters." Weeks passed. The office returned to order. Junho resigned in disgrace, and Suyan vanished from their lives completely. Min-jae focused on rebuilding. Not wealth, not status, but relationships that mattered. His connection with Hae-rin deepened. They shared mornings over coffee, evenings watching the city lights. Moments small but full of meaning. One rainy afternoon, Hae-rin held his face gently. "Do you ever think about the past life?" she asked softly. Min-jae shook his head. "Sometimes. But only to remember the lessons. I lost everything once. Now I have everything that matters." Her eyes glistened. "And me?" "You," he said firmly, a smile touching his lips. "You were always the one I should have seen. Now I never will let go." Their lips met in a kiss that was tender but full of promise. For Min-jae, it wasn't just a kiss. It was closure, redemption, and a new beginning all at once. At work, Min-jae became a leader known for fairness and insight, respected without fear, trusted without doubt. He never sought revenge for the sake of anger. It had been precise, necessary, and final. Justice had been served, and the ones who had wronged him were no longer a threat. Months later, Hae-rin moved in permanently. They laughed over breakfast, held hands on walks through quiet streets, and planned a future built on trust and love. The memory of betrayal never left him entirely, but it had been transformed into strength, a guidepost to protect what truly mattered. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, Hae-rin whispered, "Do you ever miss the old life?" Min-jae held her close, letting the warmth of her presence fill him. "No," he said softly. "I've been given a second chance. I almost lost it. But this time, I chose the right path, and I'll never let it go." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad I'm here to see it." He kissed the top of her hair. "You were always here. I just had to open my eyes." For Min-jae, the world was no longer a place of betrayal and shadows. It was filled with light, love, and the quiet satisfaction of justice fulfilled. The month that had once promised death had become a lifetime of second chances. And as the stars blinked above the city, Min-jae knew this time he would live fully, not for wealth, not for status, not for revenge, but for love, for honesty, and for the one person who had truly always been by his side. The story of his death had been rewritten. The story of his life, finally, belonged to him.